There are moments in life when fate doesn't knock softly. It crashes into your world with the force of a storm, turning the ordinary into something unforgettable. On a cold, mist-covered morning at the foot of a sleeping mountain, a young girl named Mira stumbled upon what looked like a lifeless body, half buried under broken branches and wet earth. Her heart pounded violently, her breath caught in her throat, and for a brief second she wondered if she was staring at death itself. But something inside her refused to walk away. She didn't know that the man lying unconscious in the mud, wearing torn clothes and breathing shallowly, was one of the wealthiest men in the entire region, someone whose name was spoken with admiration in boardrooms and whose influence stretched across industries. To her, he was simply a stranger in danger, and she was the only person who could save him. If you believe in kindness, humanity, and second chances, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Silent Hope. Your support keeps these stories alive. Mira had grown up in the shadows of the mountain, in a tiny wooden house that creaked during storms and let in winter wind through the cracks. Life had not been gentle with her. Her father had passed away when she was barely 14, and her mother's fragile health meant Mira had to work every small job she could find, sweeping village shops, carrying firewood, washing clothes for families more fortunate than hers. Every coin mattered. Every day felt like a struggle against time, hunger, and the weight of responsibility no young girl should bear. Still, Mira carried a quiet strength inside her, a resilience built from years of surviving on very little, yet giving as much kindness as she could afford. That morning she had climbed toward the forest edge to gather herbs her mother needed for breathing relief. The fog was thick, curling between the trees like wandering ghosts, and the ground was slippery from last night's rain. When she saw the scattered branches and the dark shape beneath them, she froze. A fallen hiker, perhaps, or someone who tried to climb too far without knowing the mountain's moods. She approached cautiously, her heart trembling, until she finally saw his face, pale, bruised, and streaked with dried blood from a cut above his brow. His clothes, though torn, were clearly of high quality, the kind she had seen wealthy travelers wear when passing through the village on their way to resorts she could never dream of entering. But none of that mattered. What mattered was that he needed help, fast. Mira slid down beside him, placing her ear near his chest to check for breath. Relief washed over her when she heard a faint but steady rhythm. She knew she couldn't carry him all the way down the steep path alone, but she also knew that leaving him there meant risking his life. So, with trembling arms, she lifted him as much as she could, dragging him slowly, inch by inch, toward a small, sheltered cave she knew nearby. The effort nearly tore her muscles. Her hands burned from gripping the wet soil. Several times she slipped, scraping her knees against sharp stones. But she refused to stop. Inside the cave, she wrapped him in her own shawl, thin and worn but warmer than his soaked shirt, and lit a tiny fire using dry leaves she had stored earlier. She cleaned his wound with herbs and water from the stream, whispering prayers for his survival. Hours passed before he finally stirred, blinking weakly, confused and disoriented. He tried to speak, but she hushed him gently, feeding him sips of warm broth she prepared from the herbs she had collected. He didn't know her name. She didn't know his. Yet in that moment, two worlds that should never have met collided in the most unexpected way. The man, who would later tell her his name was Adrian Hale, was far from ordinary. He was the CEO of Hale Industries, a corporation whose projects shaped cities and influenced entire sectors. But at that moment he was simply a man humbled by nature, dependent on the compassion of a girl who had nothing but a heart full of humanity. Mira didn't ask where he came from or why he had been climbing alone. She didn't demand payment or gratitude. To her, saving a life was simply the right thing to do. Over the next 2 days, Adrian regained strength under her care. His ankle, sprained from the fall, made walking painful, yet Mira supported him with such patience and gentleness that he felt a tug in his chest he hadn't experienced in years. Adrian had lived his life surrounded by professionals, assistants, directors, investors, people who looked at him not as a human being but as a source of power and wealth. Genuine kindness was rare in his world, and now here he was, being nursed back to health by a girl whose entire world fit into a wooden home at the edge of poverty. When Adrian was strong enough, Mira guided him down the mountain path toward her village. Every step revealed more of her reality: the worn-out roofs, the cracked roads, the children playing with handmade toys because store-bought ones were luxuries, the way people greeted her with warmth despite their own hardships. Mira didn't complain or apologize for her circumstances. She walked with quiet dignity. Adrian couldn't help admiring deeply. When they reached her small home, her mother greeted them with a weak smile, grateful that Mira had returned safely. Adrian observed the cramped room, the simple clay stove, the tiny bed Mira shared with her mother, and the shelves holding jars of herbs she had collected. The poverty was undeniable, Yet the home radiated a warmth and sincerity he had rarely felt in his luxurious penthouse. He wanted to help immediately, but he also knew that giving money abruptly would insult Mira's sense of pride. So he simply expressed his gratitude, promising he would never forget what she had done for him. After resting one more night, Adrian left the village, escorted by local guides Mira arranged for him, but not before giving her a look she couldn't quite interpret. A look filled with unspoken emotion, gratitude, and perhaps something deeper. Mira believed that was the end of it. She returned to her daily life, unaware that her world was about to change forever. Adrian, once back in the city, could not shake Mira's face from his mind. Her strength, her sacrifice, her courage in dragging him to safety, her kindness in giving him food she barely had. For the first time in years, he felt a sense of purpose beyond profits and deals. He began searching for ways to help her without stripping her of dignity or making her feel like a charity case. Weeks later, the village was visited by representatives from Hale Foundation, a charitable organization Adrian had funded for years but never personally involved himself in. They arrived with plans to build a small medical clinic, improve housing, provide educational scholarships, and create job opportunities for local people. The villagers were shocked, overwhelmed with joy, and humbled by the generosity, yet none knew the reason behind it. Mira simply watched with wide eyes as construction teams worked tirelessly. For the first time in her life, hope settled gently on her shoulders like warm sunlight. Still, she never suspected Adrian's hand in it. Months passed before a car rolled into the village, sleek, black, undoubtedly belonging to someone important. Mira was helping children gather water from the stream when she saw the door open and Adrian step out. He looked different, healthier, stronger, but his eyes held the same sincerity she remembered. He approached her with quiet steps, not wanting to attract attention. When their eyes met, Mira's breath caught, not because he was wealthy or powerful, but because the gratitude and respect in his expression felt deeply real. He told her the truth about everything, the foundation, the projects, the opportunities he had created. Mira felt overwhelmed, unsure how to react, but Adrian reassured her that none of it was charity. It was repayment for what she had given him, a second chance at life, and a glimpse of a world where kindness meant more than success. Over the next months, Adrian visited often, not as a billionaire, but as a man who genuinely cherished the simple conversations they shared. He watched her tend to her mother, help children with reading, and work tirelessly without complaint. The more he saw, the more he admired her. Mira, too, found herself drawn to the softness he carried beneath his powerful exterior. He never boasted about his wealth. He treated everyone in the village with respect and humility. Slowly, something beautiful began to grow between them, not rushed, not forced, but quietly, like a seed finally receiving sunlight. As the village prospered, Mira's mother received proper medical care, and soon she began breathing easier and walking with renewed energy. Mira herself received an opportunity to train in herbal medicine through a new community program Adrian sponsored. For the first time in her life, she could dream without fear holding her back. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the mountain she once climbed daily for herbs, Adrian stood beside her on the small hill overlooking the village. The clinic glowed softly in the distance. Children played freely on the new playground, and Mira's mother sat outside their newly repaired home, smiling. Adrian looked at Mira with quiet emotion, overwhelmed by how far both their lives had come since that fateful morning. It wasn't money that changed him, it was her. The girl who saved him with nothing but courage and compassion had become the very anchor his heart had been searching for. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Silent Hope. Your engagement truly keeps these emotional stories alive. Before we reach the ending, please comment below. Do you believe one act of kindness can change someone's destiny? In the days that followed, Adrian made a decision that would forever bind their fates together. He didn't propose with grandeur or lavish display. Instead, he approached Mira's mother first, asking for permission to stand beside her daughter, not as a billionaire rescuing a poor girl, but as a man who had found a home he never knew he needed. Mira's mother, tears in her eyes, simply nodded. Mira accepted Adrian's love with humility and gratitude, not dazzled by his wealth but touched by the sincerity of his heart. Together, they built a life rooted in compassion, humility, and shared purpose. Adrian continued supporting the region, dedicating his resources to helping the people who reminded him of Mira's strength. And Mira, once a poor girl fighting to survive, became a beacon of hope for hundreds. Proof that kindness, even from the humblest hands, can reshape the world in extraordinary ways. Their story became a reminder, to all who knew them, sometimes the person you save becomes the person who saves you in return. And sometimes the foot of a mountain, quiet, forgotten, ordinary, becomes the place where destinies collide and lives transform forever. The end. If you want the thumbnail, prompt, search engine optimization description, or image prompts, just tell me.